Hi, my name is Matthew Bellisario. Thanks for coming back by the BellisarioSonic YouTube channel from the heart of the Deep South on the outskirts of Birmingham, Alabama, where we talk about music, records, do record reviews, interviews, and much more. Today, I'm very excited to bring you a wonderful conversation that I had with legendary bassist Gerald Cannon. If you guys have been following the channel, you know that I reviewed this awesome record here a few weeks back, and this is a fantastic live record recorded at Dizzy's Club in New York. Gerald talks all about the making of this record. He talks about how he became a bass player, talks about jazz education, his favorite vinyl records, and much more. So I really think you guys are going to enjoy hearing what Gerald has to say. And if you're a jazz fan, you're really going to enjoy this. So I bring you this conversation with bassist Gerald Cannon. All right, welcome to the BellisarioSonic YouTube channel. I'm really excited to have a great guest here, Gerald Cannon, bass player who's been in the business for quite some time. Just do a little introduction here before we get started. Thank you for coming on and taking the time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah. So you were born in Racine, Wisconsin.
Yes.
And it looks like your father was main inspiration, a guitarist.
He was. He was.
And he bought you your first bass?
Yeah.
And you started playing in your father's group, the Gospel Expressions. That was kind of your first venture there into music?
Right. It was actually my father's first gospel group, which was called the Golden True Lights.
Okay. Golden True Lights.
Yeah. And it was with my uncles and, a bunch of older gentlemen. And it was a singing gospel quartet singing, And, yeah, it was great. And, the story behind it was my dad was a gospel guitarist. That's what he did, And he had all these guitars in our basement of our house. But he always told me and my brother, don't ever let me catch you playing with my guitars. Don't touch them, So, of course, every day when he went to work and I got home from school, first thing I did was go downstairs and start horsing around with his guitars. And I got away with it for probably a year or so. Then he caught me. He got home from work early and he caught me. Oh, man, that's it.
Was that
I'm done.
in big trouble?
Yeah.
Is that what he did?
I could hear him coming down the steps, but I couldn't put it away quick enough, And he's like, didn't I tell you don't touch my guitars? And I was like, yeah. He said, can you play that thing? I said, yeah. He said, go ahead, play something for me. So I played like only the first 4 notes, which were the bass notes. And he was like, put my guitar in the case, go get your coat, and come with me. So I was like, wow, that's weird. I expected to be all kind of in trouble, And he took me to Mel Lamar's music store on 6th Street in Racine, downtown. And we walked in, and he said, pick out a bass. And I was like, what?
Wow.
He said, pick out a bass. And so I was kind of into Paul McCartney at that kind because he played a Hofner bass, and it looked like an upright to me. And I've always been fascinated by those, I said, I want that one. He's like, pick out a Fender. And so I picked out a Lake Placid Blue Fender Jazz because Jermaine Jackson of the Jackson 5 had a Lake Placid Blue Fender Jazz. And that's the bass I had until I was about 35, 36, and somebody stole it.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I still have nightmares about that bass. But, yeah, that's pretty much how it started.
Wow. Well, that's pretty cool that he went ahead and bought that bass for you.
Yeah.
Then it says you attended University of Wisconsin in La Crosse, and that's where you met Milt Hinton, which you say changed your life completely.
Yes, completely. I was there playing. I was going to be a gym teacher, physical education teacher, because I was really into sports. I played football and basketball and ran track in high school. And so I was on the basketball team, and I wasn't getting much playing time, which is weird. So I took up double bass as an elective course. And my teacher at the time, Linda Brewer, who was a concert cellist, she really spent a lot of time with me. And I didn't think I was getting that good on it, I just liked it, And So she said, listen, have you ever heard of this bassist, Milt Hinton? And I was like, no, the only upright bass player I ever heard of was Ray Brown, and Jimmy Garrison. And so he said, well, he's coming to campus for the Jazz Fest this weekend. I want you to come with me and my husband. So I'm like, okay. And she goes, I already talked to him. He wants to meet you. I'm like, really? So I went. We sat in the front row. I sat in between her and her husband. And from the minute he walked on the stage with the bass, I was mesmerized. Just the way he was carrying it. He had this big smile on his face. Then when he started playing,
just
slapping
blown
the
away.
bass and I was just like, wow. I'd never seen anybody play the bass like that, And so when he finished, we went into his dressing room and he said, your teacher says you're pretty good. I was like, I'm an electric bass player mostly. I don't really, he said, play something for me. So, I didn't know anything. I just played a little blues and I played the only tune I knew, which was the Woodland Waltz that my classical teacher had taught me. And he said, you need to go to a conservatory. I was like, really? He's like, yes. You need to go. There's something in there. You got a lot of music in you, boy. And so,
wow, that's probably it's very inspiring.
yeah, I was like, wow, okay. And so, the next couple of days I called my dad and I told him that I won't be coming back here. I'm going to transfer to the Wisconsin Conservatory of Music. And he said, are you crazy? I'm not paying for that. He was really pissed off, It's going to be hard to try to make it as a musician. You need a stable, And I, of course, it's the first and only time I ever really stood up to my dad because I was, who knows how many thousand miles away and on the phone, I'm going. I don't care. I'll pay for it myself. And after the summer break, I was walking up the steps of the Wisconsin Conservatory of Music with my electric blue Fender Jazz. Knew nothing about theory, harmony, playing jazz. I was a gospel fusion funk bass player before that, And I did the audition. I don't know how I made it because I couldn't really read music. I didn't know anything about chord changes. I just used my ears and I got in. And there it is. You know what the ironic thing about it is? I'm the associate jazz bass professor at Oberlin College and Conservatory. And I have Milt Hinton's bass, the same bass that he played on in my office.
Really?
Yeah, play it every day.
Wow. How did you get that? That's
Isn't that amazing? I know.
It is amazing.
Yeah, the professor that was there before me, Peter Dominguez, he somehow got, in touch with Milt's wife and the Milt Hinton Foundation. And plus he did the Milt Hinton Jazz Institute camp every year. And they donated all three Milt's basses to Oberlin College.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So when you're studying, go ahead.
Oh, and I played at, when Milt passed, I played at his memorial service in New York. Rufus Reed asked me to be part of the 50 bass player choir. It was all 50 bass players. We all played some music. And I played with the Tommy Flanagan trio at that same memorial. Yeah, me and Tommy Flanagan and Tootie Heath. Yeah.
Awesome.
So it's funny how life works, man.
Yeah, so that you pretty much learned to read music and everything there at the conservatory. That's where you really got all your formal training. And was there a jazz scene there that you were able to go out and participate in jam sessions and stuff? Because you don't hear too much about that area as being kind of a hub for jazz.
Oh man, when I was in school, that was 1977. All of our teachers, Manty Ellis, great guitarist, was one of our teachers. Berkeley Fudge, great tenor player. Martha Artist, pianist, who played with Miles and a few other people. All of it is, it's just like, every big city has local guys that never left that could come to New York and compete with anybody. And
right.
So right away, when I got accepted, they threw me in like 5 different ensembles. And it was kind of like baptism by fire, pretty much, I mean, like, oh boy, I can read, so I learned things fast. And then I started working with my teachers, and one of my greatest mentors was I started working, I think, 2 years after I got into the conservatory with this great vocalist, still alive. She's like 87 now. Her name is Penny Goodwin.
Oh,
And
yeah, I've heard. Yeah,
yeah, I worked with Penny for 9 years. I mean, it was 6 nights a week at the Fisher Hotel, and she's kind of the one that got me started playing upright on performances, because when I first got with her, I was playing all electric, and then the drummer, Lonnie Sombrey, said, "Hey, Penny, Gerald just bought an upright bass. My dad bought me an upright. My first bass was horrible. Couldn't get any sound out of it, but I love that bass. Anyways, and she was like, "You got an upright bass?" I said, "Yeah, I just got it like a couple of days ago." She's like, "Bring that bass to the gig tomorrow night or you're fired." I said, "I don't even know how to hold it. I don't know anything." She said, "Bring it or you're fired." So there it is.
Ever since then, you've been playing the upright.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about, you said you went to Marquette University where you studied art, which you have one of your paintings here on the inside of the jacket here. So what made you go there? Was that was after you went to the conservatory?
Yeah, well, here's the thing about my visual art side. I've been painting as long as I've been playing the bass. I was doing watercolors when I was 10, sketching and drawing and, and all of that stuff. I just liked it, and so when I got into the conservatory, I had to take some side classes, and they were, having all the academic classes were at Marquette University. So I said, you know what, I'm going to take some art classes, and all of my youthful stuff I got kind of some formal training that I don't use at all now. But, and when I got to New York, I started hanging out with painters in the village.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So I kept it a secret for so many years. The guys here didn't even know I was a painter, unless they came to my house and they're like, "Who did those?" I said, "I did." I'm like, "What?" But I've been doing shows and showing my art and for years, but I kind of kept this separate because I liked having my painter friends and my musician friends.
Right. So you went to New York when you were 28 years old.
Yeah.
And that's when you started playing with a lot of the Blue Note musicians and other famous musicians there. Tell us a little bit about how that, I guess that would have been the next huge life-changing moment, going to New York and meeting all these guys, right?
That was major. I always was fascinated by New York City, even as a kid. I read this book called The Lords of Flatbush when I was about 12 or 13.
Oh, I remember that movie.
Yeah, I read the book. I was like, man, because where I'm from, everybody lives in houses. In Wisconsin, you have a house, But I always thought it would be great to live in an apartment because your next door neighbor is right there. You can run down the hall and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so, a friend of mine, Eddie Allen, who's the brother of Carl Allen, we went to school together at the Wisconsin Conservatory of Music. He's a trumpet player. And he said, "Hey, Gerald, I'm going to New York. You want to ride with me in the car?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I went with him. And he were living in New Jersey at the time. So the first trip into the city was like the next day after we got back. He said, "Man, I'm going to go hear this band, And it was all my heroes. It was George Coleman, Cedar Walton, Billy Higgins, and Ron Carter.
Oh, wow.
I forget the name of the club. But I walked in. I was so overwhelmed. And it was hot. It was in the summer. In New York, when it's hot, the buildings, there's no breeze. I was so excited. I walked outside to try to get some air, and there was no air. And I fainted right on the sidewalk.
Wow.
Right on my face. And I woke up because somebody stepped on my hand.
Nice.
And I woke up and I was like, wow. And I went back in the club and Eddie was like, hey, what happened to your face? You're like bleeding. I said, man, I don't know, but I don't care. Shut up. Run.
I'm back.
Yeah. And I knew right then and there that's what it was going to be for me.
And then was New York? So did you get involved with a lot of jam sessions there in New York? Is that
I did.
And tell us about that. I think that's really important from what I can tell, because here in Birmingham, I mentioned this quite a bit, but we have a jam session here with a couple of Alabama Jazz Hall of Fame trumpet players, and they host it. And a lot of the young guys come up, and you can see them getting better and better over several years. Tell us about the importance of it and kind of the environment. Was there any times you were intimidated?
Are you kidding?
With the jam sessions?
Are you kidding? Are you, man? When I because when I left, I came to visit with Eddie and Carl, and when I finished, I was there for like a week or two, and I said, look, you know what? I'll be right back. I'll be back in 2 months. And because that was it. It was it for me. I was married at the time, but I was having problems, and so, me and my wife were separated. So I came back in 2 weeks. And the big jam session at that time was at the Blue Note in Greenwich Village. I mean, that was the best jam session in New York, and that was in the '80s in the '80s, late '80s, something like that. And man, I went every night. I took the PATH train from New Jersey, subway to the Blue Note every night for they didn't let me play for like 2 weeks. And then the band was Justin Robinson, Bernard Harper, Philip Harper, Rodney Kendricks, sometimes Renee Rosnes, and I forget the guitarist's name. Anyways, all cats that are cats now, right? And so Justin Robinson was pretty much running it, and I'd say, hey, can I play? And he was like, oh yeah, you that guy from Wisconsin with the funny sounding voice, And I was like, yeah, maybe later. Then they would never call me, I did that for like 2 weeks, and finally, toward the end of the second week, I just like, look, man, I don't know what your problem is, but I can play, and this is ridiculous, man. I don't know, Like, okay, go ahead, go up and play. So I went up and played, and I was so pissed off that it took so long for him to let me play. I almost ripped the scroll off the guy's bass, right? And while I was playing, they all kept turning around and looking at me, I'm like, what are these guys looking at? Whatever, I'm playing. And when we finished that tune, the bass player came to get the bass that was on the gig. And Justin turned around and said, hey, man, you busy next week? I'm like, no, I'm starving. I have no money, And he said, okay, well, can you start next Monday? I'm like, yeah. And he said, okay, you're hired, you're fired. And he fired the other bass player.
Wow.
Right there on the spot and hired me.
Wow.
Which I thought was I didn't know what to do. I'm looking at the guy, I'm like, man, I'm sorry, I'm fresh off the boat from Wisconsin. We don't really do things like that there. But yeah, and I stayed on that gig for a couple years.
So on the jam, you were on the jam session. You were the
yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So who?
Me and another guy.
And how? I hear different stories from different people on how the jam sessions were run, because there needs to be a certain standard on if you can play, if you can't play. Jose here in Birmingham, he's pretty nice about it. He'll say something to you after you go off the stage. He'll be like, hey, man, you need to go back. You need to learn the melody, the tune. You can't, whatever. But some of the guys that he came under, he was like, man, they would tell you to leave in the middle of the song. One of the guys grabbed the trumpet off. One of the guys like, man, don't practice on my stage.
Right.
Or whatever. So what kind of experiences did you have? Or who?
Ooh,
was there a gatekeeper?
Man, it was rough. It was rough. Like, back then, if you didn't keep up, then you might never get back on that bandstand again. And they would just, one time I was playing, to give you an example, it was a trumpet player that came up, and he had went through the same thing I went through. with them not calling them, signing the list, and they still don't call you and all that. And so finally they let him play. The guy was not up to standard, you know. And so the band leader just started telling people, leave the stand, while he was taking a solo.
Oh,
The drums, the piano's lost.
oh no.
The other horn player, like, I'm the only one, because like I said, I'm still playing. And he's like, Cannon. I was like, you know, he's like, leave the bandstand or you're fired. I laid my bass down and left. When the guy opened his eyes and looked, there was nobody there.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know what happened to that poor guy, but he never came back. The thing about New York, and I tell my students this, is when they first come here after they graduate, whatever, it's like, you got to keep coming back no matter what anybody says. You know, you got to, that's part of it.
Yeah, right. You have to take the criticism and listen to what, and then go back and get better, right?
Yeah, go back and practice and shed, and then come back, and you got to keep coming back. You can't just, you know, because that's a tough time in development in the beginning, and it's a very important part of development that's a little over, that's not enforced enough, I think, these days. I think that sometimes that, you know, guys are a little too soft.
Yeah, yeah.
And some guys are a little too, they can't, it's hard for some to take good criticism.
Right.
I mean, look, when I was doing the gig at the Blue Note, the After Hours, we played after whoever was there. So Max Roach was there, Sarah Vaughan. You know, I saw all of them. And then we had to play after them, you know. Sometimes when they were coming down the steps at the Blue Note, I'd see them stopping and listening to see who the new young cats were, you know, and then they would go out the door. Sometimes they would say something. Major Holly, who was one of my all-time heroes, pulled me to the side one night, and I was so glad to talk to him because one of my dad's favorite records was Midnight Blue, Kenny Burrell.
Yeah, okay.
So I've been listening to Major Holly since I was born, man, pretty much since I was 8, 9. Doom, 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 doom. That bass sound has been in my head since I was a kid. So he came up to me, and I was like, oh, Mr. Holly, you know, I've been listening to you, blah, 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 blah. He said, that's good, young fella. But, you know, you play pretty good, but you ain't got no sound, man. Your sound ain't shit. That's exactly what he said to me, you know. And I was like, okay, Mr. Holly, well, you know, what can I do to make, instead of getting all offended and being all like that, I just said, just sir, what can I do to get my sound better? He said, you got to put more finger on the strings, man. You picking the tips of your fingers. You got to put the finger on that string. That's what he told me. You know, and he said, come by the hotel room tomorrow and I'll show you. And I did it. He showed me, and I used same technique today.
Wow, so that's a great. Just how one night like that can change everything.
Yeah,
and as long as you're open to listening.
Yeah, as long as you don't take it so, you know. Like a lot of times, sometimes when I say things to young guys, they get so offended about it. It's all for the love of music, first of all.
Right.
You know, I mean, those guys were hard, but that's because of the love of the music. You know, it wasn't like they were trying to pick on you. Maybe some were, but even then, it was all, you know, it's all good stuff to make you a better musician.
Yeah, I think that was kind of handed down, which I think, like you're saying, Jose talks about this, where he talks about, you know, needs to be a certain standard at the jam session, and he's not going to he's not going to change it. But at the same time, he's pretty nice about it compared to some of the guys that came before him. And I had Vladimir Shafranov on. He's a piano player. Do you know him?
Sure, I know him.
Yeah. So I had him on. He was talking about some of the jam sessions that he was on, and he was on one with Eddie Lockjaw Davis. He was talking about how, and he was kind of the enforcer of the jam session. He said he'd just off, like, you know.
Yeah, Vladimir's been through it. He's been through it.
Yeah.
all of us that are like my age and a little, we all went through the gauntlet of like development. It's all part of it's all part of it, man. It's important. It's
Yeah.
so important to be able to, you know, take constructive criticism from cats who've been out here,
Right.
no matter how they say it.
Right. Do you still do any jam session stuff now, or you?
No.
No.
I did my time with that, man.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'll go and just hang maybe, but no, I don't. No, 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 no.
Do you think though there's something lost now where you don't have that type of mentorship, if you will, or do you think the younger people aren't looking as much to the more experienced guys for that mentorship?
I think that it's different now, man. It's different. It's a different time, and I get it. It took me a minute to really, like accept that it's a little different now. It's a different time, man. Jazz is an evolution. It's always, and it's a different time for the young musicians than it was when I was, I mean, there's all kind of stuff going on in the world, man. So it's different, and they have different things to worry about outside of music that I had to worry about. That I think influences maybe certain things with them. Because I teach, I teach all these young guys now at Oberlin and at Juilliard. And it's a different, I mean, I'm not the teacher, I'm not like, well, to a certain degree, but I'm not like my teachers were. Who would just tell me, stop playing the bass like a little sissy and pull the damn strings. What's the matter with you? I can't even hear you. You know what I mean? It's not like that. And I don't want to be like that, But I do have an obligation to make sure that the point gets across. And I do. In a little different way. Sometimes, don't get me wrong, sometimes I'll crank it up a little bit.
Right.
Barry,
But you have to be direct and so right now, the way music is, of course, you have streaming, all these different ways to listen to all these musicians, which is great because if you want to go pull up an Oscar Pettiford, him playing bass, you can go pull that up. Watkins, you can go. But I think something, and you could get, like to hear your opinion, is you don't get to listen to somebody in depth or study that particular person, that record that you used to listen to over and over again. Yeah, you got to tell me about your record collection.
Yeah, you see all those? Look, man, when I was coming up, we didn't have CDs, streaming. My brother was sitting by the turntable while I was learning, Jocko and, Earth, Wind, and Fire and Funkadelic, all those bass lines. He was sitting by the turntable going like this.
Yeah.
Like, put it back again. And he was listening, and he was like, that's not it, man. And, so the thing about that is you get to hear the whole experience, man. You get to hear the whole record, the whole experience of the whole. You can't skip unless, and you get to hear the whole evolution of the bass lines from the first song through the next. Like, you have to sit and listen to the whole side so you can hear, and you can hear the similarities in the bass lines in different tunes. Like, that's how you know who Paul Chambers was, by his sound, he's got certain things that he does. Ron Carter's got certain things, and they do them different on different tunes, but it's kind of the same thing. That's the advantage of vinyl to me. It's too easy to skip.
Right.
And streaming. And
then in a playlist, you can't. Yeah, you can hear a lot of different bass players, but how many do you listen to very closely, right?
Well,
like to learn.
You have to study them.
Right. So tell us about this record here, which we're going to talk about. This is a tribute to the people that you learned from and played with, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about how this record came together. First of all, and it's on your own label, right?
Okay. I have 3 on my label. That's my first vinyl, and it's my first live recording. All I can say about live recordings is
It sounds fantastic.
Thank you. Well, I think I spent 8 or 9 years with Elvin Jones first. Well, before Elvin was Roy Hargrove.
Oh yeah, you got to tell us about that.
Yeah, that was like, and this record just came out.
Actually, I'm getting ready to do a review of that. I
We
haven't.
recorded that in
I forgot that.
1998. I had forgot about that. But anyways, very quickly, when I came back to New York, I stayed for 2 years. Then I had to go home and clean up my act for 2 years. Then I came back. When I came back after that, I've been here ever since. While I was home cleaning up my act, Roy Hargrove's quintet came to Milwaukee. I was playing. He came and he said, "Man, I know you, man. I heard of you. You used to live in New York." I was like, "Yeah, and I'm coming back in 6 months, man, or a year." They said, "Call me when you get back." So we went to a jam session after the gig. And when I got back, I got with Roy. And my time with Roy was beautiful. Really gave me a chance to develop my way of playing. I got to practice my theories in real time with Roy. My theories on bass lines, rhythmic accents, sound, quarter note lengths, all that stuff. I got a chance to really practice that in real time, and I found out things that worked and some things that didn't work, So when I left Roy, which was right after, I think, 9/11, something like that, I had like a year off, and I was playing with a whole bunch of different people, and I got the call to play with Elvin. That really, I thought I knew how to play bass, and I was doing good, but when I got with Elvin, it was like, whoa, it's a whole different study and really playing the bass and standing on my own 2 feet, because with Elvin, that's what I had to do. He expected certain things, strong,
Very intense, right? Very intense.
It wasn't it was intense in the beginning for sure. It took me like 2 years to figure out what to do, And then once he explained something to me, it was, boom, easy. Well, not easy, but I understood, With Elvin, everybody has this big, thing about, well, Elvin's loud, I never played one gig with Elvin with an amp or a monitor. Every gig, I don't care where it was, concert hall, doesn't matter. All I had was SM58 or 57 mic in front of my bass. And
That's it.
that's it. No monitor. I could hear myself perfectly. So with Elvin, I learned how to throw my sound out without physically overtaxing myself, And I learned how to play with more finesse. And that old thing Major Holly told me really came into play. Putting more finger on the bass and not pulling and yanking.
Interesting.
Really developing, the sound and the length of the quarter note, which was very important for Elvin. He used to yell at me in the beginning, "Don't cut off the quarter note, Cannon. Stop cutting off the quarter note. Let it ring the full length." And I studied with a metronome, not the ticks, but looking at the arm of the metronome. Because the length of a quarter note is from here to there. So instead of having my notes going dit, 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 they had to go doom, doom, doom.
Oh, interesting.
And after that, bam.
So his style of drumming completely changed the way you played bass. You had to adapt.
Oh, yeah. That's Elvin.
Yeah.
And I played with a lot of great drummers. I played with Art Blakey a few gigs, did a few gigs with Billy Higgins, and all these great drummers. And with Elvin, it was different, because his beat is so long, so there's no room for a short quarter note at all. Doesn't feel right, and to get into a firefight with Elvin Jones, bass, you're getting all into it with him. That's what I thought was supposed to happen. But in the beginning, it was killing me. I was soaking in the bathtub every night after every gig, man, like this. Like, what had just happened to me? Oh my God, my body feels beat up.
To keep up, because I mean, he's just
The,
incredible when you listen to him.
yeah,
Unbelievable.
it's the force that you have to learn how to deal with, not the volume. His momentum, you got to keep that momentum going with Elvin. You can't, like, you expect that motion, man, that force of the motion. That's the hardest thing. That's where playing with finesse came. That's where I really got my finesseful thing. It was like I couldn't fight the bass with him. I tried it. You kill yourself,
Right.
and it'll never really feel. It never felt really right with me. I'm just grateful that for the first year or two that he just liked the way I played, period. Because I was like, man, I sucked. you know, like what can I do? And then I just kept hearing him telling me, stop cutting off the quarter note. And so I brought my metronome and not even listening to the tick, tick, tick. My time is pretty good. But to get the
Just
sway,
to let that note ring out.
let it ring for the full length. And after that, all of my students in their syllabus, all of my bass students, private and they have to have not the electronic ones. Those don't do anything but go tick, 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 tick. You can't. And plus, the arm of the metronome
Something about.
is swinging, first of all. That's the first thing. It swings.
Right.
Second thing, it's moving air. We can't feel it. But when I'm playing the bass, I'm trying to let the bass vibrate and let the air come through the F folds and the notes right on top of the air. I'm moving air out of there. So, I mean, that's my theory. And it worked.
Yeah. So you played with Roy Hargrove, which was
Yeah.
that's a completely different experience because Roy was kind of he could do the straight ahead stuff, but he can go into that funky stuff. He can go into that kind of R&B type thing.
Right.
And how was it playing with him as far as how did he kind of run things? I'm curious. I've seen the new documentary
Right.
that's out, which is fantastic. But yeah, tell us a
Roy,
little bit about playing with him.
Roy was great, man. I mean, I went through, when I first got in the band, it was me, Kareem Riggins, Steven Scott, and Ron Blake. That was the first combination. And then it changed. Piano chairs changed. And then the tenor changed, and we got Sherman Irby and Larry Willis and Willie Jones III. That is when we started. It was a perfect combination. And Frank Lacey did, he had a quintet and a septet. And that's when things started to develop. I mean, we were a really, truly tight band. We just bam, locked. In the rhythm section, me and Larry Willis and Willie Jones. Larry Willis was the old man. It was like three generations. Larry Willis, me, and Frank Lacey. Well, Larry Willis was 12 years older than me. Me and Frank Lacey were the same age. And we were 10 years older than the rest of the guys. So it was three generations. And, man, we were hot. That was like the best band, hands down, I ever played in. It was beautiful because first of all, the rhythm section went after the horn players every night. We went after them harmonically, rhythmically, every night. They had to play, all of them. And they enjoyed it. I mean, we didn't play same tunes the same way every night. We did different harmonic structures. That's why I said with Roy, I could really work out my theories and my bass lines and harmonically, alter things. And Larry Willis, the greatest piano players ever, he had his whole way of voicing. So I had so many choices to choose from as a bassist. I could listen to Willis and walk off some of the voicings of his chord. I could walk off some of the notes from Roy or Sherman's solo. I mean, it's just great. I really, Yeah.
Sounds like a great experience. How did he run the band? Did he pretty much let everything did he kind of dictate kind of like
No.
what you're going to do, or was it pretty?
So he was asking us, hey, what was that you guys played? And we were like, don't worry about it. Just turn around and play your horn. We never told him anything. Which opened up their ears to all kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Roy is just a genius, man.
Yeah, incredible. I mean,
He was a genius. He had this photogenic memory that he could remember the tune and never. I played with him probably a year or two before he died, and I had left the band a long time ago, and he called me to do a gig in Cincinnati. And so I'm like, yeah, and he had completely different, bunch of young guys and stuff. And he said, hey, Cannon, let's do your tune. I'm like, which one? You know, I'm like, I don't even remember my own tunes, you know, after this. And so we did a tune I wrote for my youngest daughter that's on his Moment to Moment record. And I hadn't played that tune in years, man, you know.
he remembered it.
He remembered it. He even told, hey, that's not the right changes you played back in Cannon. I'm like, yeah, I remember it, man. No, it was the best experience. We traveled the world. We played we headlined all the top festivals. You know, we pretty much kicked everybody's ass that played before or after us, and we knew it. You know, it was just man, we were all brothers, period.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell us how this record comes together now, about how you put this together.
You know, after McCoy passed, you know.
I mean, you got some great players. I mean, everybody on here is,
Yeah.
wonderful. I mean, you got Eddie Henderson on here, Joe Lovano, Sherman Irby. I mean, this is, and you know, I've only recently listened to Dave Kokoski, who's fantastic. I've heard him on a couple of records, but I hadn't been familiar with him up until like this past year or so. And of course, Lenny White. So
Yeah.
tell us how you got all these guys together. Steve Turre is on here too.
Right. Well, I wanted, you know, people in for this particular project that had felt the spirit of either playing with Elvin or playing with McCoy or both. Because that's the spirit I wanted it. I didn't want to do a generic copycat record of, you know, like I didn't want a piano player who's going to go and play McCoy Tyner's greatest licks, man. There's too many of them. And they don't sound like McCoy. I played with McCoy 14 years. It's not really, you know, a lot of them don't. They have the vibe, but there's a lot more to McCoy. And same with Elvin. You know, they can play the Elvin kind of triplet thing, but it ain't really it. There's a certain, Elvin and McCoy had this spiritual thing, man. You could hear it, and if you play with them long enough, you could feel it. And they're very spiritual. When they talked about Coltrane, because I asked them both, I was with them for years, you know, and they had this really spiritual thing about Coltrane. And they both said he was my teacher. And you could see when they talked about him that there was like something greater than whatever we think music is. And they had that. So I wanted cats in that for this project, you know, that had experienced that. You know, and Elvin and McCoy, they really never told me anything to play, man. They never said, I want you to play this, I want you to play that. All Elvin ever said was make sure your quarter notes are long, period. And don't rush, you know. McCoy never said anything, and trust me, I asked McCoy pretty much after every gig for the first year, hey, is everything okay? Is everything okay? He's like, yeah, man.
That's it.
You swing it, you know. So I wanted cats that experienced that whole thing, man. You know, Dave Kokoski, well, we did a record probably 10, 11 years ago called Triangular 3. And that was with me, Ralph Peterson, and Dave Kokoski. It's a trio record. And I've always been into his playing. I mean, I've known him since I came to New York, you know, pretty much. And I always like, man, that cat can play. You know, and if I ever get a chance, if I ever find the right project, I'm using him, you know. And I knew he wasn't going to come in trying to sound like McCoy. He was going to come in channeling that experience, and he studied McCoy enough to know what to do in the right situation. And so that's definitely, I mean, he was my first choice right off the bat. So I'm calling Kokoski for this. Lenny White, I had never played with before.
Oh, interesting.
Before this record. Except for during during Elvin's memorial at the Blue Note. They had a memorial concert. And I was the house bass player for that with, I think Anthony Wansley, because he played with Elvin too, was on piano. So all these drummers came. I mean, it was just, that was the only bass player, man. Besides, Chip Jackson came and played one. So I got a chance to hear all these drummers. Man, it was a drag. All of them were doing their greatest Elvin Jones's thing, And they could play. All of them are great drummers, But, Elvin had just passed. I just played with him, and I was just like, man, that ain't it. So there were two drummers that, for me, really channeled Elvin spirits when I played with him at that memorial. One was Will Calhoun from Living Color. Well, I didn't expect that at all. I'm like, this cat's a rock and roll drummer.
Yeah.
And then he sits down, and I'm like, whoa! And the other one was Lenny White. And so I said, yeah, if I ever get a chance, man, So there you go. There's Lenny White. Eddie Henderson played with both McCoy and Elvin. Steve Ture played with both McCoy and Elvin. Joe Lovano played with both McCoy and recorded with both McCoy and Elvin. Sherman Irby played with both McCoy and Elvin. So there you go.
So you have your ultimate lineup, which is awesome.
Yeah, and yeah. So that's how that came about. And a lot of times when great musicians pass, there's sometimes guys in their band will immediately do a tribute record. Which I think is cool. Me, I wanted to wait, so I could really try to, present, my respect to both of those guys, to Elvin and McCoy. I don't want to just do something right away because it's not, for me, it wasn't about, capitalizing financially on them or anything, because I was very close with both McCoy and Elvin. McCoy's been to my house. I used to go to Elvin's house all the time and hang out with him and Keiko and listen to records and eat and stuff. So we were, they were like big brothers or uncles or something like that to me, both of them, And so I didn't want to just slap something together. Plus I wanted it live because they both are very loose band leaders. They weren't really tight. Right here, I want to on this bar. I want to da-da-da-da. Wasn't like that. And so I wanted to capture that whole
spirit of that.
Yeah, of that.
The live.
We only rehearsed one day.
That's it.
The day before the recording. That's it.
And is this the entire show? Is this everything, or did you pick what you wanted to have on there?
Yeah, we recorded 2 nights.
Yeah, at Dizzy's, which in there, and so you've got, did you pick what the best ones you wanted from each night, or is that how you did it, or then you got your artwork here on the inside, which is cool.
Yeah,
there's a. So tell us about how you put the record together.
Well, I really don't do records without my co-producer, which is Willie Jones III. He's an incredible producer. His label, WJ3 Records, we all started our label at the same time. Me, Willie, and Sherman Irby started 20-something years ago. We all went different directions. Me, I put my label together just because I wanted to do my record. I didn't want to be with a label telling me what to do and how to do this and all of that. And I wanted to cut out the middleman and all that stuff. So Willie Jones, I'm on like a bunch of his records. I'm on all Sherman's records. So Willie Jones is a great co-producer. He's a great producer, but like I trust him. He's my brother. He's going, it's not going to be any kind of weirdness. So the way I put it together was pick the tunes, and I tried to pick McCoy tunes that everybody doesn't know. Because I think those are tunes that should, now they know, hopefully. Home, for instance. That's a tune that most people don't really know. I think it's I forget something that record it came from. But anyways, yeah. So I just put those tunes and Elvin's tunes, EJ Blues and Three Card Molly, those are staple. We played those tunes every night, man, for 9 years. And so pretty much that's how it worked out.
So what did you for all? I guess since all these guys had played with them, they kind of had an idea first of all of what you're going to do.
Yeah, I sent them the music.
And then you had one rehearsal beforehand where you just kind of made sure that everybody's kind of on the same page as far as the progressions and what you're gonna.
Yeah, the day before.
Day before.
Yeah, the day before. I sent them the music like I think maybe a month or 2 weeks before the gig. They're all professional musicians.
Yeah.
So this doesn't really take a whole lot of like do this, do that, do that. I'm not that kind of band leader anyway. I don't like it like that.
Yeah. Well,
because I know what you can do, and I want you to do your thing.
Yeah, but it astounds me all the rhythm changes and the stops and the different who's going to come in where and all that. It's just so does everybody know? Okay, he's doing the solo here. He's doing the solo. Is there an order? So you have that basically worked out. And so it's very, and then other than that, it's very loose.
Right. The I did all the arrangements except for one, and we rehearsed the arrangements. And I had the solo list, who I wanted to solo here. The thing is, it's like I was like, look, this is going to be a live recording, so could you guys please, maybe keep it to 2 courses? Because it was swinging so hard till they just went. And I don't blame them. And I didn't say nothing. I said, well, I'm going to have to do a lot of editing on this record. Well, not me, my Catherine Miller. She had to do a lot of editing because, for a record, different CD you can go longer, but on vinyl you can't,
Yeah, and out here, of course, you've got the 2 records, so you've already got a double album here.
Right.
And so I guess if you would have been unedited, you would have had, a 4-record set or something?
Yeah. Like it's not expensive enough for a double record. But, man, I am so pleased with this record. I'm very happy with it. Everything came out where I wanted it. These guys are, they're the best of the best. So what do you expect,
Yeah.
And they're all mature. There's no problems with anybody.
Everybody shows up on time, ready to play.
Ready to play, excited,
Yeah.
I can't wait, me too.
And you can hear it on this record. It's really wonderful listen all the way through. Fantastic. Great intensity, and there's a lot of dynamics and different things going on. Tell us about your record collection. I got to hear about your record collection sitting behind you.
Oh, man.
You looks like you got quite a bit.
Yeah. I haven't counted. I think it's almost 2,000. I don't know. You know what I'm doing now? I'm packaging all my records with different record covers and vinyl sleeves, like you did. You said you were going to do for mine. Yeah. So I'm going through all that. I think I'm all the way through the J's now. Maybe. No, I'm into the J's because I'm into the Sam Jones records. But
So you've been collecting records since you were a kid?
Since I was a kid.
You still got them all? What are some of your favorite, if you had to, I got some here, some records I want to show you. I kind of like to show people like some of my favorite records. Tell us some about your favorite records with bass on it. Ones that caught your attention.
I'll tell you the first record that caught my attention with bass on it. My mom used to work for a college in Racine called Dominican College, and she worked in the boys' dormitory. So every summer break, they would always leave stuff in the dormitory, right? So one day she comes home with a stack of records, right? And she said, "Hey, Gerald, I think you would like this one." It was John Coltrane's Africa Brass.
Oh, yeah.
Reggie Workman and Art Taylor. Man, I put that record on, immediately went downstairs, plugged in my electric bass, and learned that line, man. And I think that's what really kind of like just put me on a direct path to upright bass. You know, so that's one of my favorite records. You know, I'm a big fan of, well, I have all Paul Chambers. I'm a major fan of Sam Jones. I have all his records. Seven Miles is one of my favorite records from Sam Jones. Oscar Pettiford. I just got a new system about 3 months ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I have the ATC 40s, SM40 speakers, and I have the Musical Fidelity SMI 6 amp. And I have a project debut turntable with a Hana moving coil cartridge.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And I have the Blue Sound Vault streamer and the Heed, I think it's called Galaxy or something, phono preamp.
Oh, cool. What's it called? I'm looking to get a new preamp. I got to upgrade mine soon.
Oh, man, check out the Heed.
Is it Heed?
Heed, Heed.
I'm writing it down so I can check it out.
Yeah, it's great. It's a move. You have a moving coil or a moving?
Well, I've got the Move Magnet right now.
Ah.
Is that one made for either one?
No, it's made for a moving coil, but I think they have one that does either one. You know, I just brought my wife is from Naples, Italy, and I just brought back my father-in-law's Techniques, direct drive automatic. I forget which one it is, but it's vintage from the 70s.
Oh, wow. Turntable, direct drive.
Turntable,
Nice.
direct drive. And so I got to take it and get it hooked up and stuff. But I think I'm going to put a moving magnet cartridge in that one, because I have that on my amp. It has a moving magnet phono preamp in it, built into it.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. So you listen to a lot of records still.
Oh God, that's all I do.
I'm going to show you a couple here. Get your this one I had to pull out. This is a great one. Milt Hinton.
Whoa, yeah. I don't have
Bases loaded.
Bases loaded. Ah.
Yeah, it's on the RCA Victor.
Woo.
Pretty cool. This has got, some great tunes on it. Moon Over Miami. I hear Rhapsody on here.
Ah.
But this is, I'm not sure what year this one's from. I think this is probably from the mid-50s, late 50s.
Yeah. Ah.
Anyway, yeah, so that was one I was going through and I was pulling out. I could have pulled out 100 different records. But
yeah, me too.
I
got so many.
Of great bass players.
Yeah, like I said, I'm a major Sam Jones fan.
Oh, Sam Jones. I did pull one of his out. I think, which one is he on? Oh, yeah, this one here. Cedar Walton.
Ah, Firm Roots. That's killing. Oh, but I did my first gig with Cedar when I was 24 years old. It was Peter Walton and Billy Higgins.
Oh, wow.
In Minneapolis, Minnesota. Well, you talking about a guy having to check his underwear after that one. Woo! For a whole week, man. Yeah.
Then we got Doug Watkins, of course.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about him, of course, with Sonny Rollins. He had his own sound, of course, one of the earlier guys, right?
Yeah, and he's got his records too. I have both of them somewhere. There's so many. Oscar Pettiford,
He's probably
people
the
talk
earliest.
enough about Oscar Pettiford. He's the Charlie Parker. Him and Jimmy Blanton, they're like the Charlie Parkers of bass, man.
Yep, he played on this early Miles record.
Right. Dig.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I listen. That's all I do. I listen to records. I've been like I was totally against streaming until I got the new system. I said, so I'm streaming some stuff. As a record producer and having my own label, financially, it's not really feasible. I don't get any money from it, and it's okay. But it's a great way for me to audition stuff and then go search for records. And
That's what I do. Yeah.
it's convenient. Sometimes I don't feel like getting up changing a record all the time.
Right. Yeah, I'll go look for, if I see something, I'll go listen to it streaming, and then I'll buy the record if I like it.
Right.
So to me, the way I look at it is if it's good enough for me to listen to it, then I'll buy the record.
Right.
That's kind of how I think about it.
Right. Oh,
Bud
yeah.
Powell, we got here
Yeah.
Paul Chambers, who, of course, is
Come on.
one of those, yeah, I mean.
My students have to do a lot of Paul Chambers, Ray Brown, Oscar Paddleford's transcriptions, Sam Jones transcriptions. He's another bass player cats don't talk enough about.
Yeah, right. I mean,
And
another guy I don't think gets enough credit is, I hope I pronounce his name right, that Nels Peterson.
Oh, Nils Peterson. He's a good friend of mine.
Really? Oh, tell us about, because I don't think he gets that much rec. He's played with Oscar Peterson, all these. I mean, he's played with a lot of people.
Played with Bud Powell.
But yeah, but you don't really hear a whole lot about him. He's not very, popular compared to some of the others.
Well, he was from Copenhagen, Denmark. I met him while I was playing with Roy.
Okay.
At different festivals, at the North Sea Festival. And, Oscar Peterson was there with his trio. Sometimes he had Niels, and, he was an interesting guy, funny as hell. Play the dog crap out of the bass. Yeah. And I sit there and watch him play and be like, damn. Sometimes he used 3 fingers, I mean, he just played the shit out of the bass player. Period. And we hung out sometimes at festivals, and good guy, man. Good guy.
What about Larry Ridley? You got
Larry Ridley. I just talked to his nephew about a month ago. Yeah, Larry Ridley. Guys like Larry Ridley, Rufus Reed, Curtis Lundy is another bass player that's not talked enough about. Guys like Rufus and Larry and Buster, who was one of my teachers and did the liner notes. I mean, those guys helped me when I first came to New York. They really did. I mean, Rufus Reed, when I left New York and when I came back after getting myself together, I went to Bradley's, which was really where everybody hung out. Art Blakey, Cecil Taylor, all the cats hung out there after their gigs. So I was sitting there, and I came back, and Rufus Reed came up to me and said, "Hey, you ready now?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm ready now." I said, "Good," because and I never forgot that. Guys like that, like Larry Ridley as well. You could talk to those guys. You could ask them questions, and
they help you.
A straight up answer. Right?
Yeah.
Slide Hampton was another one.
One guy that didn't live too long, unfortunately, Scott LaFaro, that played with Bill Evans. Of course, Bill Evans has had a lot of great bass players play with him.
Oh, yeah.
But he's, of course, died in a car crash.
Right.
But
see, it's the thing. Scott LaFaro was great, but Bill Evans always had great bass players.
Yeah.
I'm a major Bill Evans fan, right? All the way through, but I really liked it in the 60s. We had Monty Budwig, and he had, Wait. I tell you, I'm getting old, man.
I know. I say I keep forgetting stuff. I'm like,
forget all kinds, and I have all these. tons of Bill Evans records. You kidding? Anything new that comes out?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I'm like, you know.
Do you get all those new live ones that come out? Those record store day ones.
This is one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, yeah. I have that on CD. I don't have that on record. I need to get that on record.
Got to get Chuck Israel's who I was thinking.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Who's still alive, and I never met, and I'm going to get his number from somebody. But I just want to call him and pick his brain, man. Because he was a bad cat. I saw him. Actually, I did meet him once. He was playing with Barry Harris at the Village Vanguard, and I went to him. Briefly, you know. But I would love to call him and pick his brain. Leroy Vinegar's another bass player.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Joe Benjamin. You know, I mean, there's some bass players out here, man, that I mean, I study all these guys.
Ray Brown, of course, he
was one of my teachers.
And this album I ran across, and I had never heard of it, but this has got Joe Sample, Ray Brown, and Shelly Manne. It's called The Three. And yeah, I didn't know this one either. I ran across it in the record store, and I just looked to see who was on it. And it's a pretty intense album, kind of a modern type jazz, but man, these guys smoke on this.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know,
it's great. You can just discover all these different, different players. What about Jimmy Merritt?
Oh, come on! Now that's the beat. Jimmy Merritt, cats don't talk about nearly enough. He had a different way of walking the bass, man. He had a little hop to it. You know, to his bass lines. You know who sounded similar to him as a young bass player? He just passed a few years ago. Was I just had his name on the tip of my tongue. It'll come back to me. But yeah, that's that Philly thing, man. A lot of great bass players came from Philly. Dwayne Burno, that's who I'm talking about.
Oh, okay,
He reminded me a lot of Jimmy Merritt in a certain way, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk about this guy because we can't talk about bass without talking about Ron Carter, right?
It's my maestro, man.
Who's still in it? I mean, I just recently saw him here for the grand opening of the reopening of the Alabama Jazz Hall of Fame.
Right.
And he came here and played this awesome, all by himself, on the bass, and it was incredible. But
I just talked to him last week because I'm very blessed to have, as an educator, 3 great consultants for teaching: Ron Carter, Buster Williams, and Rufus Reed. You know, if I have questions about certain things or certain students, you know, I can always call them. And so I just talked to Ron. I call him Maestro. I don't think I've ever called him Ron to his name, to his face, you know. But I just talked to him. I think it was last week, and I wanted to let him. I just bought a new bass. It's not new.
Upright.
18th century. Yeah. It's. Oh. You know, and so I wanted to share that with him. And so we were talking, and he said, "Well, what kind of strings are you using, Mr. Cannon?" And I told him, he said, "So I'm using the ones you recommended to me like 8 years ago." He's like, good. And yeah, he's the best, man. He's probably the most intense bass teacher. But, man, it's like a big magnifying glass when you take a lesson with Ron Carter. He just sits there and looks at you, and then it just picks you apart.
It seems like he's very intense. He seems like, just in watching the interviews and things with him, he's very he listens well, and he seems like he thinks things out. He's very methodical about how he goes about things. It seems like. Yeah,
he's very here. I'll show you something. I don't know if you can see it on my bass, but this is my new bass, but this is my primary bass. If you look here on the fingerboard.
Okay.
See that?
Yep.
Ron Carter put that there on my first lesson.
Really?
Yeah, he says, "No, it's not gonna mess up with the vibrations or the sound, Mr. Cannon. But it's to remind you to keep your thumb in that area of the bass."
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because I was playing too high up on the bass, so I wasn't getting a good pitch.
Gotcha. Tell us a little bit about Gerald. While you got your bass there,
Yeah.
can you tell us a little bit? So when you're playing and you see this always intrigues me because you see some of these guys. Of course, now the names just slips me, but where they go down and they're really playing really down far on the neck, and they're. So tell us just a little bit about the sound, how you get different sounds on the bass, as far as like when you're playing it. Like you just said, you keep your hand in that position, your thumb in that position all the time, or do you move it around with different tones?
No.
No. Interesting.
I
Okay.
used to until I started studying with Ron. No, I keep it right here all the time.
Interesting. Okay.
Like that. It never changes.
And then it's just you get your tone from your fingers and yeah. Wow. So
Yeah.
that's
Oh my
awesome.
God. This is Margaret, by the way. Her name is Margaret.
Okay. Oh, awesome. That's yeah. So that pretty much changed how you played by what he recommended to do there.
Man, he really corrected so many, and still does. Matter of fact, the last time I saw him, he said, like, "Hey, Mr. Cannon, it's about time you came in for your 300-mile checkup." I was like, "Yeah, I had to get something together." But no, he was, man, just the lessons I had with him, which was for about maybe a year or two, corrected so many things and made my playing a lot more better,
Yeah.
sound wise, finesse wise. I mean, when I first came out, I was playing really loud and stuff. He's like, "Oh, Mr. Cannon, my wife doesn't need to hear what we're doing in here." It's like, yeah, really. He's like probably the best teacher I've ever had. Him and Buster. You know?
That's incredible. What about Cecil McBee? So that's another guy.
Oh man, you're making me want to go start pulling out records.
Yeah, I know. I'm bad about that.
Dude.
There's one guy that have you heard of Cleve Eaton?
Of course.
Of course, yeah. So he's from Birmingham here. He used to play at the jam. He's one of those guys that Jose tells me was no nonsense at the jam session. Like, he didn't like it, he'd be like, "Man, you don't practice." You know, one of those you don't practice on my stage guys.
Right.
But this is one of the records he's on with the Count Basie.
Well, yeah.
And so
He had his own records, Cleve Eaton.
Yeah.
Oh, he was a bad cat, man. He's another unsung hero, man. That cat's, you know, that's the thing. Where records come in, opposed to even CDs and streaming, is like a lot of the younger generation don't know about cats like him. You know, because maybe they might have heard something and they just didn't like it, skip right past it.
Right.
So they haven't. You have to study, man. You have to study these bass players. You have to write out, do transcriptions so you can see their language in the contour motion of their bass lines and where they took their rest during their solos. You know, so you really have to study. Okay, to give you an example, I was trying to learn how to play half notes and whole notes at one point. Later on in my career too, and I listened to 2 records, and I still listen to them, but for probably at least every day for at least 3 or 4 years. And that was Charlie Hayden and Keith Jarrett records. One of them is called Jasmine. The other one is called The Last Dance. I mean, Charlie Hayden was one of the most...
actually, I have one of his CDs sitting here. I have this one sitting here.
Right. Beautiful CD.
Yeah.
But check out those duo records because you can really hear the length of his half notes and quarter notes on ballads. I mean, I was trying to get my bass to come close to that type of. I want that type of feel when I'm playing half notes or playing ballads. You know, which takes a lot of patience and a lot of courage in the beginning. I tell my students because you're very vulnerable when you're playing those long notes. It's like you got to make sure that it's sustaining long enough and that it's at the right feel. Anyway, now I'm getting into my teaching thing, but I studied those records for years.
Which one? The Last Dance?
Last Dance and Jasmine.
Okay.
It's 2 duo records with Keith Jarrett and Charlie Hayden. They're incredible. And they're beautiful. They make you cry, man.
Yeah.
Another one is
Beyond
those. The Missouri Sky with Pat Metheny. That's another great Charlie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have that one. That's a great one.
Yeah.
There's one guy that I had just recently become familiar with. That is Clint Houston. Who I'd never run with Charles Tolliver. This new one that just came out. This is smoking.
I just played with Charles 2 weeks ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they had a memorial for Michael Kuskuna at St. Peter's Church, and I did a Blue Note record, which is a record you might want to review, man, with Sherman Irby in 1998. It's called Big Mama's Biscuits.
All right.
It's me, Sherman, Ed Cherry, Clifford Barbaro, who's an unsung drummer, and Roy's on there as well. But anyways, back to Clint Houston. Man, I used to go see him at Bradley's a lot. He was always playing there. See, he's one of those, he was from for me, it's like the 70s bass player sound. Him, what's his name? Bass player that used to play with Woody Shaw. I can't believe I can't remember these guys' names now. Stafford James.
Okay. I'm not that familiar with him either.
Yeah, the 70s bass players, it's kind of like when amps kind of started in pickups. They all use these weird pickups, underwood pickups or the Fishman pickups, which could amplify the bass, but the basses really didn't have any ass to them. It just made really
doesn't pick up that doesn't pick up the true resonance of the instrument. Those pickup.
Yeah, they kind of, I don't know if that's what it was. I mean, I had one of each, or it was just that sound. Like they kind of like took the bass off the amp and put more mid-range and treble. Almost sounded like a fretless electric.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
That sound. Clint Houston had that sound.
Yeah.
But that was a very important period of bass playing, that era. Because, everybody was getting into pickups and trying to figure out which one is, and how to, so a lot of guys, and plus a lot of cats were trying to cut through, make sure their bass cut through everything. Right,
yeah. Because everything was getting louder. You had fusion stuff going on.
Right, and a lot of bass players were kind of going for that kind of fusion-y, upright sound.
Right.
Me particular, I never really wanted that sound, but Clint Houston had that sound. But he could make it work.
Yeah, it sounds really good on this album.
Yeah. And with Charles Tolliver for his music, yeah, that worked perfectly.
Yeah. This one, of course, this guy's still playing. Larry Grenadier, is that how you pronounce his name?
Larry Grenadier.
Grenadier,
yeah. Great bass player.
You see him on a lot of records. He's still playing. Of course, this Charles Lloyd record here just came out last year. Is fantastic, but he's on a lot of records.
Oh yeah, Larry plays with on a lot of Brad Mehldau records.
Yeah, exactly.
And, one of my former students is playing a lot with Brad Mehldau and also Samara Joy. His name is Felix Moselholm.
Okay.
Yeah, he's from Denmark. He's one of my Juilliard students that graduated a couple of years. He's doing it.
He's playing. Is he touring with Samara?
He tours with Samara. And
I saw her recently over here in She came to Birmingham a few months ago. She was fantastic.
Oh, she's incredible.
Unbelievable.
She is incredible. Yeah. It's so nice to hear singers telling the story now. It just seems you can feel the story,
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Samara's beautiful. And good people. Just a beautiful young lady.
she was nice. She hung out, signed the autographs, and talked. Very. Yeah. And another thing about her, she's still very young. So
Yeah.
I mean, she's what,
Got a
25 or
long
something,
career. Yeah.
and she's only going to get better, which is kind of scary to think about.
Right.
One guy we need to talk about though, because I'm always interested to hear Mingus.
I'm scared. Still scared of him.
Now,
So I got a whole section of Mingus records that I haven't really studied yet, man.
he's very. You listen to him play. He's not. He's got his own thing going on.
Yeah.
I don't know, how to explain it, but what do you think is he's a composer. He does a lot of his own material, but this, I mean, the way he plays is very. I don't know how you explain it, but it's
Well, I played in a Mingus band years ago here, New York, the Mingus Big Band, and so we played the direct chart, that he wrote because Sue Mingus, his wife, was running the band, before she passed. And man, just looking at the charts, it was like, wow, this cat was something else, man.
yeah.
Because most of them were finished, but some of them weren't, which kind of left it up to in his business. I can't really comment really hard on Mingus because I have not studied him a lot because I've always been scared of him. I studied him when I got the gig with the Mingus Band just so I could have an idea of what was going on. I got his books and stuff, but I haven't gotten into him yet. That's like the future,
Really?
The older, yeah, I'm going to really do a deep dive study on him, But yeah, he's one of the bass players that I'm like, ugh, I'm scared, I mean, not really scared. I just have so much respect for him that I want to spend the time
To really,
before I
yeah.
comment on
Yeah.
be able to explain what I think his theories of bass were. I can't do it right now.
Yeah. Well, that's one wonderful thing about music. Yeah, I play music. I play like mostly blues and that kind of thing. But you never stop learning. You always.
It's a life study.
It's a life study.
Right.
What about a couple of younger? Well, I say younger, but they're not really young anymore. Well, this guy's probably one of the younger ones. Alexander Claffey. I'm seeing him on a lot of. Oh, was he?
Yeah.
I'm seeing him on a lot of records now. He's getting playing with a lot of different people.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah, he's great. He's one of the future, man.
Yeah, and this album is fantastic. This new Heavy Hitters album with you, and you got Mike LaDon, Eric Alexander. This thing smokes.
Right.
But yeah, I've over the past couple of years, I've noticed him just on a lot of different albums, and he's really good. Mm-hmm. So you taught him.
Yeah.
Of course, I can't not talk about bass without talking about Christian McBride.
Freaking nature.
Which he does everything.
Ray Brown told me about him, I think my second lesson with him. And he said, okay, Gerald, diminished scale, 3 octaves or something. Double diminished scale, 3 octaves. So I did it. He's like, man, you better get that shit together. I got a 14-year-old student from Philly that's going to kick everybody's ass in a few years, I was like 20 years old or 21 when I started studying with Ray. And I was like, who? And he's like, Christian McBride, you're going to hear about him. So when I came back to New York, I was like, I got to hear this cat, man. Ray talking all, Yeah, I heard him. I was like, God damn, he wasn't lying. Shit. So he's a great bass player, man.
And he can play anything too. I mean, not just jazz, but he kind of came up with that funk
He's
stuff.
He's a freak of
that,
nature, man. When it comes to bass,
play anything.
Right.
And I got one more before I know I'm talking your ear off here.
So, it's okay.
This guy, John Patitucci.
Yeah, good friend of mine.
Oh yes, another intense bass player. But I love his stuff with that Chick Corea type stuff. But he plays a lot of different things, like a lot of different. He plays straight ahead, or
he's a consummate bass player. Could play anything. We just did a concert together for the last summer for the Pepperoncino Jazz Festival, and it was a tribute to Michael Brecker. And it was me, Bill Stewart, Joey Calderazzo, Joe Lovano, Bradford Marcellus, George Gazone, Steve Wilson. I can't think of the trumpet player's name. Is ridiculous. And the vice. But anyways, it was at Town Hall, and so John asked me to do that for that festival. I played some gigs. Michael played some gigs with us, with Elvin with Elvin. He did 2 gigs with us with Elvin at the Blue Note. And so, so we played a tune together where we were opening up for some tune that Joe wrote or something. And it was a lot of fun. Yeah, he's a bad cat. Good friend of mine. One of the cats, man.
Yeah. There's so many great ones. I could have pulled out 100 records, but there's a lot of great players.
Sort of unsung heroes, man. I mean, even from my era, Lonnie Plexico, Tyler Mitchell, like I said, Curtis Lundy, Peter Washington. To me, my favorite bass player from my era, is Pete Wash. It's quite a few.
Yeah, and who was down here too not long ago was Rodney Whitaker. Yeah, he was down. Actually, he was down here for the Ron Carter when he was here for the opening of the So, and he's been down here a couple of times. Actually, he played the jam session here on Tuesday nights. He played.
Great bass player.
Yeah.
He was with Roy when I first met him. I was like, damn, who's this guy? Because I left New York. And I was like, man, where is these guys coming from? I've only been gone 2 years. But that's New York.
Yeah, a lot of great musicians. I wanted to ask you a little bit, if you have the time. What do you think is the greatest challenge now, since you teach? What do you think of the challenges now that you find with people that are getting into jazz, as far as teaching? Are you finding that? Because I think you could make the argument that a lot of the younger musicians now may be better formally educated than perhaps a lot of the earlier guys that kind of grew up playing on the street type thing. What are the challenges, do you think, now for jazz education?
Well, I think some of the challenges, at least in the bass department, is, for me as a professor, is trying to get the students to understand the whole art of playing the bass and the whole spectrum of playing the bass, not just like when I say art of playing the bass, I mean the whole thing. We're glorified accompanists, man. That's what we do. We accompany. That doesn't put limits on what you can do, being an accompanist. I mean, and the bass is in charge, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, right.
It's not an ego thing. I mean, Ron Carter's told me that, Ray Brown told me that. I kind of felt it anyways, but it's not, has nothing to do with ego or anything like that. But our job is to make the band feel good and sound good, and sometimes we have to repair things from other musicians in a way that, I don't know if repair is the right word, but we have to make it work. Like sometimes you get with drummers that are just playing all kinds of stuff. They don't even listen to the bass. Okay, so we got to get them to listen to us.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, sometimes that's not. Sometimes it has to be verbal, but most of the time it doesn't. Your length of quarter note can correct anything. A quarter note can just put everything in the right spot. By the sound of it, by the length, by the rhythm of it, by the consistency of it, and by the finesse. Now, if I'm pulling real hard like that, that gives the drummer the green light to go like this. If I'm pulling and yanking and just, then I give the drummer to just start bashing, and it's the sound, man. It's like the sound of the bass.
So you can kind of govern the mood of it.
Everything.
The mood of how everything is.
Oh, man, we can change everything.
The dynamics.
The dynamics, the swing, which is, short quarter notes don't always get it, man. then the drummer's gonna go ding 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 ding. Doom doom doom. The drummer's gonna go spang 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 spang. You know, and harmony wise, our choice of notes, and the way we use progressions and different things can really open up a tune, especially with the piano player. You know, I can change things harmonically with just one particular note in the right spot. They can like open up another door for the soloist to investigate if they like. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. You know, we're bass players, man. We're not really trying to be like all out front all the time. It's not what we do. We're making this shit sound good and make it feel good. And a lot of times you see people patting their head, they don't even really know it's coming from the bass. You know?
Right.
They just know something's making them feel good. It's usually that quarter note. You know, and yeah, it's a lot. It's a big responsibility, man, playing the bass. And I try to really instill that in my students, the whole responsibility, not just waiting to get a solo to show what you can do.
Right,
I could care less if I like soloing, love soloing, have no problem doing it. But man, I like walking.
Yeah.
I like accompanying, man, because then I can like, woo, you know, I can do things. Not that you can't do things soloing, but
right. But
I'm soloing all the time, anyways. I got to play. I never stop playing.
Yeah.
Till it gets to the drum solo, you know, even then sometimes.
And with jazz, learning the jazz language, and listening, because you really have to listen to what the other guys are doing.
Exactly.
With jazz more than I think any other genre of music, because you know rock music you can, you know, everybody's turning their amp up louder,
right,
or whatever. But with jazz, you got to listen. You got to have that conversation. But
right.
what about?
It's
No,
a
go ahead.
language. There's commas. There's in soul and improvisation. It's a language, man. There's space. You know, silence is golden. Listen to Miles Davis, the last concert with John Coltrane on Green Dolphin Street. You know, on his soul, it's a lot of space, man. You know, which gives Wynton Kelly and Paul Chambers time to get in, to be a part of the conversation. It's a conversation, man. It's like language. You know, yeah.
And how much do you teach the scales and things like that on the bass? Is that something that's, you know, because you have different people that teach different ways, and some people will go to scales. For me, I got stuck playing, you know, rock and blues. You get stuck in like a pentatonic scale and things like that.
Right.
When it comes to jazz, though, how do you look at scales? How do they?
Well, I mean, it depends on the level of the student. You know, yeah, you have to know your scales. You know, but you have to. I mean, since I'm teaching in a more on a higher academic level, a lot of my especially at Juilliard, they already know their scales. You know, I mean, it's hard enough just to get in there, so you know.
Right, so you got to
have that together. But I'm more. I teach more progressions and chords and how to evaluate a chord while you're playing it. You know, like what to do on a minor chord or a dominant chord, what choices you have.
different voicings.
Resolve it. Yeah, different voicings, sometimes different inversions, you know, things like that. And yeah, I'm more into that. Yeah, I have a different, I don't want to say it's different. This is from what I learned from my teachers, pretty much.
Right.
You know, first thing is like, you know, intonation, sound. Let's see what we can do. Let's stay here before we start going up the fingerboard. Let's see, you should be able to walk a blues in half position or first position all day.
Right.
Only takes one note to change a bass line. You know,
Right. Yeah.
I think a
Yeah.
lot of times younger students overthink everything, and I get it. They need to overthink everything,
Right. Yeah.
so they learn how not to overthink everything. You know,
Cool. Yeah. Well, before we go, tell us about your record label. Tell us a little bit about
uh,
what. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Tell us about your record label.
well, Woodneck Records. I think I started it 20, 21 years ago. We were all at the North Sea Jazz Festival with Roy Hargrove. Maybe it might even be longer than that. But so Ray Brown grabbed us because he was there. We were all sitting in the lobby, and I knew Ray very well. And he said, "Hey, you guys got your business together?" And I was like, "We're what's he talking about?" He was like, "You got your publishing, you got your tunes copywritten. Have you thought about starting your own label?" We're all like, "Nope." And then he just went in, man. He sat us down for about an hour, explaining the importance of being with some kind of with BMI ASCAP or something like that, with getting your tunes, copywritten. The advantage of having your own label and of not having your own label, And when he finished, me, Willie Jones, and Sherman Irby said, "You know what? Start my label as soon as I get back to New York." And we did, and it's been great. It's a lot of work. Everything I do myself, outside of everything, mixing, mastering. I mean, I don't mix it or master it. I use Catherine McVicker usually for engineering. On this particular record, since it was live, I used I can't remember his name. Jeez, hold on, I got the record right here.
Yeah.
Woo, I'm getting old, man.
Um,
Yeah, I used Todd Whitlock and Jamie McComber, and they were the recording engineers because they got such a great board at Disney's.
yeah.
Great
Yeah. It sounds
studio.
fantastic. This is a great sounding record.
And I used Catherine Miller for mixing and editing, and I used Alan Silverman, who I've used on the record before this for mastering. And yeah,
So this is your first one on vinyl, though, right?
yeah, not
And
my
so-
last,
Huh?
not my last.
Good. I hope so. Yeah. I'm curious about. So what? First of all, why did you decide to put this on vinyl? Obviously, you're a vinyl fan, but
Yeah.
up until this point, you hadn't done it. So what inspired you to say, okay, I'm going to put this on record?
Well, I'm a major vinyl fan, and plus, once I heard the mixes, when it got to the mastering stage, I asked Alan to master it for vinyl and CD. And man, I was just like, this is going on vinyl. And then I had Chris Muth do the lacquer for it. And I was like, yeah, this is definitely going on vinyl. And from now on, I will record everything on vinyl. And I might redo my other two records on vinyl, reissue those on
Oh
vinyl.
yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Future. Have you heard Combinations?
No, I have not. So I have to get on the ball there.
Yeah, Gary Bartz is on there, Jeremy Pelt, Sherman Irby, Kenny Barron, Will Calhoun, Willie Jones, Russell Malone's on that record.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I wish. Yeah, he was a great player, and
I miss Russell, man. Anyways, I don't want to get all emotional.
Yeah.
That was my brother too. We did a lot. I played in his band for years, and we did a lot. We played together with Jimmy Smith one time
Oh really?
in Racine, Wisconsin. Yeah, on organ. I played electric bass. I guess he fell off. He was painting his house. He fell off the ladder and broke his left arm or something. And so he could only play. So they hired me to play electric bass. That was great.
Oh, interesting. So, yeah.
Me and
Because
Russell-
normally you got the organ player, you don't usually have a bass, or a lot of times you don't have a bass.
right,
'cause-
but he couldn't. His
couldn't
arm
play.
was in a cast, so yeah.
Yeah. So you're thinking about having those remastered for vinyl and then reissuing those.
Yeah, eventually down the road. Yeah,
You could put those on your own label, I guess. Since you have the
Of course.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'm planning my new record. The next record is coming out. Well, not coming out, but I'm planning on recording that in the near future. And it'll be a trio or quartet record.
And do you already have ideas on what you're going to want to do? What kind of songs, or what you're going to do your own, or you're going to do a mixture?
I'm going to do mostly my tunes. I'm going to kind of feature myself a little bit more on this record than I have to. You know, man, I like being in the rhythm section. I love it. You know, I like, and so, but I'm going to feature myself, play more melodies, maybe more solo. I think I only took 2 solos on this record. So maybe take more solos. I don't know. We'll see. But definitely Dave Kukowski will be on piano. And a couple other cats. Definitely I'm going to use, I think, Brian Lynch on trumpet. And it might be a quintet record. I might use, I can't think of his name. Boy, I'm having one of these days. See his face. Chris Potter.
Oh, yeah. What an amazing player that guy is, huh?
Yeah. And I have 3 drummers in mind that I don't want to name until I ask them.
Okay, yeah.
It'll be a challenge for me with all 3 of them, you know. So.
And they'll be all your own compositions, so
I'll do some standards. Yeah. You always got to put some standards on there, man.
Yeah.
You know, people don't want to hear my shit all the time. They want to hear some tunes, man, that's recognizable, that you know. I mean, that's the way I look at it. Right?
Yeah. I think, actually, I was talking with Vladimir Shafronoff, because I've talked with him a couple of times on this channel. He talks about how that he thinks that a lot of the younger players aren't playing a lot of the standards anymore.
Right.
And he thinks it's necessary before you start writing your own tunes that you have a foundation for those standards. And he calls it a canon, which you know, if you think about it from a classical point of view, where you have all these classical masterpieces, if you will, that have been written, and they're re-recorded and re-recorded and re-recorded in different ways. A little bit different with classical, but he calls the jazz standards the same type of thing. He's like, there's a canon of work within the jazz standards, and those need to be carried on, not necessarily have to be duplicated or played the same way that somebody else did them. But anyway, he talks about the importance of that.
It's very important. I mean, just think if everybody played the standards the way they played them on Broadway. Really?
Yeah, right.
Come on, man. You know, it's just because it's a standard doesn't mean you have to play it the same way. As a matter of fact, exploring standards, that's what it's all. That's what Miles and those guys did.
Right.
They even play the melodies the exact way, you know, Rodgers and Hammerstein wrote it. Matter of fact, I think they just played it the way they hear it, man.
Yeah. And he talks about, you know, if you're a younger musician, he says, and this is his opinion, but he says it's easier to hide if you do your own, this is my own song, and I can play whatever I want to play. But a lot of times it doesn't come across as being authentic because you don't have that canon of music behind, you know, that root to start with. So is that?
Well, yeah, he's right. And I think, you know, when I listen to music, man, I listen to music because it makes me feel good.
Right.
Sometimes I have to think a little bit more, but I really don't want to think, man. I want to feel. And if I'm listening to something with like odd meters or something, I gotta I can't help it. I'm a musician. I'm a professor. I'm like, what time signature is that? Then now my mind's completely gone off of what's happening. I want to feel it, man. I don't want to really have to think that much about what I'm listening to.
Right.
If I want to think about anything, I want to think about like, whoa, what was that he played on the solo? Not, you know, is that in 12/8? What meter is that? You know?
Yeah.
And plus, you can't dance to it. Not that I'm a dancer, because I'm certainly not.
Yeah.
But I want to be able to pat my feet and be like,
right, the groove.
You know?
Yeah. I like a lot of, you know, I like a lot. I like when people do original stuff because I think it's important to because there could be a new standard that somebody writes or something that.
Right.
But at the same time, you have to have the roots there in that canon of jazz music, so you have that language that you can incorporate into whatever you're doing.
But the root is the blues.
Yeah, right.
The root is the blues, man. This music is like built on the blues, man. When I talk to McCoy, when I was playing with him, he's always talking about the blues. This is McCoy Tyner.
Right, and some of the stuff he did, they were far out there towards the end. The
Way
Coltrane
out
stuff,
there.
man, they're
Yeah.
but there's still something about it that's still
Yeah.
rooted back where he came up through that bop, hard
Yeah.
bop, all that.
It's all with the blues. It's all, even with Train. If you listen closely, you hear it's still the blues. You can feel the blues in it. All that stuff he's playing. It's rooted in the blues, man. But it doesn't have to sound like your blues.
Right.
But
yeah.
you got to have something. I mean, I think I want to hear and feel some of that. And don't get me wrong, I like some of the new music coming out by some of the younger music. Some of my students are writing, incredible music.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, that's pretty deep, But so anyway.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come by and talk. I know we're going on like almost 2 hours now, so I can talk your.
My wife and mother-in-law just got back from the grocery store.
They're probably like, I just want to thank you for coming on, and hopefully we can get back together again. I'd love to talk to you again, especially when your new record comes out.
Definitely.
And then any recommendations on some other ones to pick up and review some of your favorites? I'll write those down and.
Yeah, Sherman Irby's Big Mama Biscuits for sure.
Yep, I got that one written down.
And his latest record, I'm on, I forget, Cerulean Blue, I think the name of it is. You can just Google him.
Yeah.
Let's see who else there's a lot, man.
I got a few of those. I'll definitely check those out. Yeah.
Yeah, and Willie Jones, Fallen Hero.
Oh, okay. I haven't heard that one.
The record. And there's a Ralph Moore record that we did a few years ago. Forget the name of it. I think it's called Three Score. There's a ton of records.
Yeah.
Check out Triangular 3, the one with me, Ralph, and Dan Kikoski.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again for coming on, and we'll definitely have to do this again. I really enjoyed talking with you, and I think everybody's going to really get into all the knowledge you have, and a lot of cool stuff. So thank you so much for taking the time.
It's my pleasure. And I have to tell you, my wife was listening to when I was watching your review of my record. She's like, I like this guy. She's like, he's really real. She really likes you a lot, man.
Well, I appreciate that.
You do a great job.
Thank you. The music, I love sharing music with other people. When I find a great record like this, I'm like, man, we got to tell everybody about it.
I appreciate it. I appreciate your support. Thank you so much.